Today I'm going to paint using only two colours. I'm going to use ultramarine and burnt sienna. And now I'm going to use these brushes made by Lebenzon in the US, handmade brushes, beautiful things. And I'll tell you later on in the video how you can get 20% off over on his website. And so do stick around for that. Watch the video. There'll be an announcement somewhere in the middle where I explain how you can get that money off. Now I'm going to work from this photo today. It's the River Great Ouse in Norfolk. I've drawn to it. It kind of reminded me of a seagull painting in a way. So I thought I'd have a go at that, see if I can achieve some of that misty effect. I'm going to start by wetting the paper all over with the bottle. Get quite a bit of water on there. So the majority of this painting is going to be wet into wet. And then I'll bring it all together with a few hard edges at the end. So get quite a bit of water on there, knock out any of the big drips there with my hand. I'm using a medium-sized goat hair brush. And pick up some of the burnt sienna, some of the blue, and then mix that together to make a nice soft grey. Bring some of that in for the sky. Now I want everything to be soft. I don't want any hard edges at all. So every time I go back to the palette, vary that mixture ever so slightly. I'd make it slightly bluer this time. And soften all around the edges, dragging the paint down. Now back in, a little bit more burnt sienna. So building up one big wash for this sky. And I'll bring it all the way down and paint the water as well, all at the same time. So even more burnt sienna now, so it's quite orange. And again, lay it in, lots of water in the brush. Lots of water in the paint as well. So it's going to be one big, soft, diffused wash over the whole sheet. Bring it all the way down, like I said, painting the sky and the water all together, one big wash. So I brought that all the way down now. Now I'm going to add a little tiniest little bit of texture in the sky, a few soft clouds. So mix up a blue-grey again, slightly darker than the sky, and then lay in some very simple cloud shapes, allowing the brush to do the work to make its little marks. Very, very soft brush this, so it creates some very nice soft marks. And mop up that bead that's forming at the bottom there. Don't want any runbacks. Drag some slightly darker blue or grey paint in across the bottom of the water as well. And again, mop up that bead. And now I want this to dry naturally. Now I've allowed that to dry for probably about 3 or 4 minutes. Naturally I haven't used any hairdryer or anything like that, so there's still quite a bit of moisture left in the paper. I still want to get those soft diffused edges, so I'm going to start working on some of the trees. So mixed up again a warm grey, and now bringing in some of these tree shapes. I'll swap to a synthetic and goat blend brush now. So bringing in these tree shapes, again allowing the brush to make the marks. I'm not overworking these shapes at all. And now bring a line across, that's where the trees meet the water. Now vary that colour ever so slightly, a little bit more burnt sienna in there. I'm working my way across. I'm looking at the reference kind of, but it's not really important. Make sure I vary the heights and the size and the shape of all these trees as I work my way across. I'm getting very faint as I come over towards the left third. Now I can get slightly darker again as I come out towards the edge of the sheet. And drag some paint in horizontally. Again, little water line where the trees meet the water. Now I've made these trees slightly darker than in the reference photo, really so there's something to look at. Now let's go back in a little bit of blue into that mixture, and I can bring the reflections down as well at the same time. And now, because the paper's still slightly damp, everything's softening and diffusing and blending together. Now bringing the reflections straight down, not going for an exact mirror image of what's above. Don't have to be too accurate with it. Be very quick, be very loose with it. So treating everything as very simple shapes. Dragging that paint down and allowing it to almost disappear down into the water. Let's touch some slightly darker paint in on the right hand side there. Now that's that wash pretty much completed, but I think I want to try and knock it back a tiny little bit. So I've got some paper towel. And so using the paper towel, lift out tiny little areas of paint, really trying to make the most of that misty effect. Very, very light touch. I don't want to blot it too far. I don't want to take it back to paper. But lifting out that tiniest little bit of paint to really get that misty feel. While I'm waiting for that to dry, let's have a quick talk about these brushes that I'm using today. And these are all handmade by a guy called Lebenzon in Seattle, Washington in the US. Now this is a goat and synthetic brush with a bamboo handle, and it forms a really, really lovely tip. It's a very nice soft brush, good for detail and larger washes. This is a medium-sized goat hair brush, and again it's very soft, forms a really nice tip and fantastic for skies. But look at the craftsmanship in the handles. Each one is individually made, takes them a couple of weeks to make, and so there's so much craft and so much love and effort goes into making these brushes. They're amazing. This is a tiny little detail brush. It's Siberian elk, and again forms a perfect tip and excellent for tiny little details, small lines, tiny little marks. But like I said, each brush is individually made and takes him a couple of weeks to make. So there's a huge amount of effort goes into making these, and they're beautiful, beautiful brushes, and I feel really privileged to have them. But if you ever look in the description of this video, there's a link, and also there's a coupon code which is Chris. So very simple, nice, easy to remember. If you head over to his website, you can get 20% off all brushes. Make sure you do it by the end of the month though, because that coupon does expire. So get in there quick and get yourself 20% off. Now I've completely dried that now, so I can start working on the harder edges. Now mixing up this paint a little bit darker. I can start working on some of those little grassy areas, that tiny little jetty bank that runs down on the right hand side there. So again, allowing the brush to do all the work, not trying to paint 1,000 little marks or anything like that. I like these kind of brushes for painting grasses and things. The bristles kind of almost make those marks on their own without having to do much at all. So laying in little bits of paint and then teasing it up to create the little grass shapes. Again, varying the mixture every time I go back, so more ultramarine, more burnt sienna, and getting it quite dark now. And all as part of the same wash, I can tease out some shapes down, and so paint the reflections all at the same time. And now again, you don't have to be too accurate. Don't want to make an exact mirror image. Somehow looks a little bit too contrived and a little bit wrong if you do that. So keep it loose. And now I've mixed up some darker paint still, and it's really quite thick, so I can lay that in on top without it running too much. And now creating that tiny little water line where that little bank meets the water. And let's flick out a tiniest little amount of dark shapes in there as well. And now there's not really anything in the reference photo, but I'm going to add some grasses out on the left hand side. So tiniest little spray with a mist bottle. And put some little grass shapes in there. It's kind of a little bit of a nod to Seago really. If you look up Misty River, Edward Seago, you'll see what I mean. I'm sure you'll see the painting there. If you don't know it already, I think it's an oil painting from memory anyway. And lovely little scene, very simple, trees, mist, and some little reeds in the foreground that bring the whole thing together. So flicking up a few little grass shapes. Again, allowing the brush to do all the work, not overthinking it, not overworking it. And bring the reflections down at the same time. Lightest touch with the brush really, dragging that paint down. I grabbed a little bit more blue paint, a little bit of that grey that's left behind there as well. And I'll put a suggestion of a few tiny little ripples there. That connects those grasses into the water. Now again, less is more. I don't want to do loads of little ripples. It's a very soft, very peaceful scene, so I don't want too much going on. Now let's mix up some really strong dark paint, and it's dried off enough I think on the right hand side now, so I can put those little fence posts in. This is my darkest, thickest paint. Save that for the end and drag in almost dry brush. Can leave little broken edges on those, it's quite nice. Tie those in as well. A few more little grass shapes in there. Makes the whole area look a little bit more 3D. And then there's that wire running across the top of the fence. And now back into that reflection colour. And very simply suggest the reflections of these posts. Again, very light touch, little wavy line. And I think this is a Siberian elk hair brush, and it holds a lovely amount of paint. Don't have to keep going back and recharging it. Very nice brush. Okay, that's the painting finished, so I'll remove the tape from the outside so you can have a nice look with the crisp white lines around there. And so quite a simple scene, but really not super easy to achieve. It's all about making sure you get the amount of water right on your paper and in your brush. So lay in a nice wet wash for the sky and then wait a couple of minutes, allow it to dry off ever so slightly, and then go back in with the trees and the reflections painted all at the same time, so it's one cohesive wash. And then dry it fully and then go back in those few hard edges with the posts and the grasses to really bring it all together. And now don't forget to check out the coupon code and the link to Lebenzon Brushes, and you can get 20% off over there. And so do check that out. They're beautiful brushes, all handmade, and a real labour of love, and a huge amount of work goes into making those brushes, and it really shows. So do check those out. Anyway, I'll be back again next week with another video, so thanks for watching everybody, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.